Good to be back with you again tonight. It was really good this morning to stand here and preach the lesson and not hear the first bell ring. Last Sunday night we had bells going off every 3 minutes. Brave and proud of me. I broke my own record. This morning's lesson was 26 minutes and 57 seconds. That's a record for me. But tonight will not be anywhere near that. Who did you want to be when you grew up? Who did you admire? Who did you look up to? Who did you want to be like? Did you have friends that you wanted to imitate? Did you have friends you wanted to be like the older you got? Did you have sports heroes? There was a slogan when I grew up, if I could be like Mike. No, we'll talk about myself. There was a basketball player named Michael Jordan. Everybody wanted to be like Michael Jordan and make those baskets like he could. What you have to do, you have to go out and buy his shoes. Because buying his shoes would make you a better basketball player. Maybe you like Tiger Woods in the golf game. You'd go out and buy his brand of clubs, or his shoes, or his golf balls to make you hit that ball better. Whatever you think works. If you ever wanted to be like the men of the Bible, in Hebrews chapter 11, we have that great book called the Book of Heroes of Faith. There's different men listed there, like faith by Abel, offered unto God a more excellent sacrifice than Cain. We have Enoch, says he was translated that he should not see death. We have Noah, says being warned of God of things not yet seen, moved with fear, prepared an ark for the saving of his house. We have a man like Abraham, says when he was called to go out to a place which he should, after receive an inheritance, obeyed, and he went out not knowing where he was going. What about Isaac? By faith, Isaac blessed Jacob and Esau. What about Jacob? When he was dying, blessed both the sons of Joseph. What about Joseph? When he died, made mention of the departing of the children of Israel. By faith, Moses, when he was born, was hid 3 months of his mother. And there are other people in the Bible as well. What about Rahab the harlot? Did they want to be like her when he grew up? By faith, the heart of Rahab perished not with them that believed not, when she had received the spies with peace. And others are mentioned in the Bible. The Bible is filled with accounts of many godly men and women who are worthy for us to imitate or want to be like. One such person is Daniel, a man who obtained preeminence for superiority and power over his lifetime. 2 stories that growing up as a child that are familiar to me from the book of Daniel, and that's Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego in the fiery furnace, and then the other story is Daniel in the lion's den, whom I'll be familiar with. So tonight we're going to look at 2 stories from Daniel. One is Daniel chapter 1, verses 8 through 21, and then we'll go over into chapter 6 and look at verses 1 through 10. 4 things about Daniel tonight. He was a man of purpose. He was a man of principle. He was a man of purity. And he was a man of prayer. Do we dare to be like Daniel? Let's read together Daniel chapter 1, beginning verse 8. But Daniel purposed in his heart that he would not defile himself with the portion of the king's meat, nor with the wine which he drank. Therefore he requested of the prince of the eunuchs that he might not defile himself. Now God had brought Daniel into favor and tender love with the prince of the eunuchs. And the prince of the eunuchs said unto Daniel, I fear my lord the king, who hath appointed your meat and your drink. For why should he see your faces worse, liking than the children which are of your sort? then shall ye make me endanger my head to the king. Then said Daniel to Melzar, whom the prince of the eunuchs had set over Daniel, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah, prove thy servants, I beseech thee, 10 days, and let them give us pulse to eat. The translation says beans, and water to drink. Then let our countenance be looked upon before thee, and the countenance of the children that eat of the portion of the king's meat, and as thou seest, deal with thy servants. So he consented to them in this matter, and proved them 10 days, or he tested them. And at the end of the 10 days, their countenances appeared fairer and fatter in the flesh than all the children which did eat of the portion of the king's meat. Thus Melzar took away the portion of their meat, and the wine which they should drink, and gave them beans. As for these 4 children, God gave them knowledge and skill in all learning and wisdom, and Daniel had understanding in all visions and dreams. Now at the end of the days that the king had said he should bring them in, then the prince of the eunuchs brought them in before Nebuchadnezzar, and the king communed with them, and among them all was found none like Daniel, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah. Therefore stood they before the king. And in all matters of wisdom and understanding that the king inquired of him, he found them 10 times better than all the magicians and astrologers that were in all his realm. And Daniel continued even unto the 1st year of King Darius. So as stated earlier, one such person that we should want to be like is Daniel, who obtained the preeminence and power in his lifetime. He started out preeminent among the children of Israel. If you go back to the 1st chapter and look at verses 3 through 6, it says, And the king spake unto Ashpenaz, the master of his eunuchs, that he should bring certain of the children of Israel, and of the king's seed, and of the princes, children in whom was no blemish, but well favored, and skillful in all wisdom, and cunning and knowledge, and understanding science, and such as had ability in them to stand in the king's palaces, and whom they might teach the learning and the tongue of the Chaldeans. And the king appointed them a daily provision of the king's meat, and of the wine which he drank, so nourishing them 3 years, that at the end thereof they might stand before the king. Now among these were the children of Judah, Daniel, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah. And as we've already read, he gained preeminence also among the wise men of Babylon. We've already read verses 17 through 20. And he also gave them power all over Babylon. Chapter 2, verses 48 through 49, says, Then the king made Daniel a great man, and gave him many great gifts, and made him ruler over the whole province of Babylon, and the chief of the governors over all the wise men of Babylon. Then Daniel requested of the king, and he set Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego over the affairs of the prince of Babylon, but Daniel sat in the gate of the king. And he was also given similar power over the Persian Empire in chapter 6. How was Daniel able to reach these positions of power and influence without compromising his convictions or his position as a godly man? A close look at the book of Daniel reveals his secret and shows how we too can be successful in whatever we do without compromising our souls or without selling our souls to the devil. First, we notice that even as a young teenager, from chapter 1, verse 8, Daniel purposed in his heart. He decided he was not going to violate God's law just to please the king. A young boy in a strange land, Daniel was immediately faced with a challenge to violate God's law by eating the king's food. He said no. He said despite his youth and the obvious pressure to conform to this world, Daniel purposed in his heart to uphold the law of God. no matter what the cost. Are we that strong today? Are we as strong as Daniel? Do we stand by our convictions? Or do we give in to the temptations of the world to gain favor with men? Because of his willingness to put God first, God granted Daniel favor in the sight of others. We've already read chapter 1 and verse 9. Now God had brought Daniel into favor and tender love with the prince of the eunuchs. How God did this is not explained, but it also happened in the case of Joseph. Let's turn over to Genesis chapter 39, and let's look at verses 1 through 4. Same situations with different people. Genesis 39, 1 through 4. And Joseph was brought down to Egypt, and Potiphar, an officer of Pharaoh, captain of the guard, an Egyptian, bought him of the hands of the Ishmaelites, which he had brought him down thither. And the Lord was with Joseph, and he was a prosperous man, and was in the house of his master the Egyptian. And his master saw that the Lord was with him, and that the Lord made all that he did to prosper in his hand. And Joseph found grace in his sight, and he served him. And he made him overseer over his house, and all that he had, he put him into his hand. Also, verses 21 through 23 of the same chapter. But the Lord was with Joseph, and showed him mercy, and gave him favor in the sight of the keeper of the prison. And the keeper of the prison committed to Joseph's hand all the prisoners that were in the prison, and whatsoever they did there, he was the doer of it. The keeper of the prison looked not to anything that was under his hand, because the Lord was with him. And that which he did, the Lord made it to prosper. So by putting God first, God blessed Joseph in such a way that was favorable to others. Every child of God needs to be a person of purpose. You may have asked yourself at some point in your life, what's my purpose in life? No one respects a wishy-washy person, someone that's undecided, that has no idea what they're going to do with their life, or have no sense of direction. Yet, whereas a strong sense of purpose often breeds respect and admiration to other people. Jesus made it clear to us in Matthew 6:33 what our purpose in life should be. Seek first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and to fulfill his will in our lives. But seek ye first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and all these things shall be added unto you. For example, to seek the will of God and to fulfill it in our lives, no matter what the circumstances, is what our purpose in life should be. As Jesus promised, this will guarantee God's favor toward us, and in turn likely gain us favor in the eyes of those around us. Will you dare to be Daniel and be a person of purpose in your life, like he had? No matter how young one may be, it is never too early to seek God's righteousness. Seek first the kingdom of God, as we just read from Matthew 6:33. Throughout his life, Daniel not only had a strong sense of purpose, but he was a man of principle. He was a man who refused to compromise his convictions. We've already read again chapter 1, verse 8, where he refused to eat the king's meat that was set before him, or drink of the wine. Rather, he said, let us eat beans. As an old man, he refused the gifts of Belshazzar. Daniel chapter 5. Let's go back to Daniel again. It's right after Ezekiel. Daniel chapter 5, verses 13 through 17. Then was Daniel brought in before the king, and the king spake unto Daniel, Art thou the Daniel, which art of the children of the captivity of Judah, whom the king my father brought up out of Jewry? I have even heard of thee, that the spirit of the gods is in thee, and that light and understanding and excellent wisdom is found in thee. And now the wise men, the astrologers, have been brought in before me, that they should read this writing, and make known unto me the interpretation thereof. But they could not show the interpretation of the thing. That's through verses 13. Verses 1 through 5. Verses 16 and 17. And I have heard of thee that thou canst make interpretations and dissolve doubts. Now if thou canst read the writings and make known to me the interpretation thereof, thou shalt be clothed with scarlet, and have a chain of gold about thy neck, and shalt be the third ruler in the kingdom. Then Daniel answered and said before the king, Let thy gifts be to thyself, and give thy rewards to another. Yet I will read the writings unto the king, and make known to him the interpretation. Under the threat of persecution, we're looking over chapter 6 and verse 10, Daniel refused to obey the decree of Darius. It says, Now when Daniel knew that the writing was signed, he went into his house, and in his windows being open in his chamber toward Jerusalem, he knelt upon his knees 3 times a day and prayed, and gave thanks before his God, as he did aforetime. Now Darius had made that decree, if anyone had been caught praying, that they would be thrown into the den of lions. Daniel stood by his conviction and says, I don't care, I'm going to pray. And he was thrown into the den of lions. And yet they did him no harm. People admire people of principle. Outwardly they ridicule them, but inwardly they wish they had the same intestinal fortitude. When they need someone that can be trusted and depended upon to carry through an assignment or a task, well, who do you think they'll turn to? God also admires individuals who will stand by their principles and by their words. Psalm 15, 1 through 5. Our society is in great need of people with principle, those who dare to be Daniel and demonstrate by example the value of being led by principle rather than by price. They're not only highly valued by God, but also their fellow man. But having purpose and principle is not all. Another element for true success is needed. What that element is can be seen when we observe that Daniel was a man of purity. The first 4 verses of chapter 6 says, It pleased Darius to set over the kingdom 120 princes, which should be over the whole kingdom, and over these 3 presidents, of whom Daniel was the first, that the princes might give an account unto them, and the king should have no damage. Then this Daniel was preferred above the presidents and princes, because an excellent spirit was in him, and the king thought to set him over the whole realm. Then the presidents and the princes sought to find occasion against Daniel concerning the kingdom. But they couldn't find nothing, no occasion nor fault, forasmuch he was faithful, neither was there any error or fault found in him. He was faultless when it came to management of his business affairs. This would help to explain his rise to a position of great responsibility and power. Of course, his purity in business affairs was related to his overall purpose to please God first, and the fact that he was a man of principle, that he could be trusted. The Christian is also to maintain a purity of conduct, whether young or old, whether slave or free. People who maintain purity in their dealings with others are often given positions of great responsibility and privilege because they can be trusted to use them wisely. Yes, Daniel was a man of purpose. He was a man of principle, and he was a man of purity, and how the world needs people like him. But the element that likely ties all these things together in such a way to receive blessings from God is that he was found favor in that he was a man of prayer. Verse 10 of chapter 6 already says that he was found kneeling in prayer. It was a demonstration of his humility. He prayed 3 times daily, a demonstration of his continual dependence upon God. He gave thanks in the middle of persecution, a demonstration of his gratitude and the fact that he had not lost sight of God's blessings. His prayers were a custom since early days, demonstrating his persistence and faithfulness in the service of God. Is it not likely that his custom to pray so diligently helped him to remain a man of pure purpose, principle, and purity, despite his rise to power and preeminence over the empire? Christians would do well to follow the examples of Daniel. Let us learn the lesson that the finest of God's servants must maintain regular and fixed prayer habits in order to continue steadfast devotion to the Lord. As quick Christians, we too are to pray often. 1 Thessalonians 5:17 and 18, Colossians 4 verse 2. If our efforts to live purposeful, principled, and pure lives are not what they should be, could it be because we have an undisciplined prayer life? Are we willing to be like Daniel? Do we dare to be like Daniel in regards to prayer? There's a false assumption that to get ahead in this world, one must compromise their convictions, that one must conform to the ways of this world. In other words, you can't be a Christian and be someone in this world. You have to get ahead in this world, you must give up your convictions. That's the assumption. But even today, there are many Christians who demonstrate that when one dares to be Daniel, they can succeed in the affairs of men without selling their souls to the world. How about you? Will you dare to be Daniel? Will you become a person of purpose? Will you become a person of principle? Will you become a person of purity? And will you become a person of prayer? If we can help you in any of these areas tonight, we invite you to come and let your request be known as we stand and sing the song of invitation.